Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would sit down and do another video for you guys and gals. Let me get a sip of my water first. My beautiful radio voice going, and let's talk about this. All right, I am known for being very hard on the supplement industry, and within the last year, I've made videos more or less saying I think they're like 99.9% scams. But when I look at data, look at meta-analysis, talk to medical doctors, I'm going to soften my position on a couple of these, and I want to be very, very clear. This is a softening of position. It does not mean that in all instances, even these things are useful. So I want to be clear on that. But I think it's important for us to have some nuance when it comes to these things. And I'm still going to hold contention that nonsense like test boosters, branched chain amino acids, pre-workouts, Tonkat Ali, all this stuff is completely useless. These are all cons. If you are selling it, you are a con man and you should be ashamed of yourself. If you're selling any of these things, you are a con man. They don't work, and the data shows it. Now, I know that's a harsh position, but it's true. I'm going to name a handful that I think are possibly good. I'm going to basically list 5, and I'm going to discuss the nuance of the good. All right, right on top of the list, protein powders. I don't consider protein powder to be a supplement. So maybe we can throw it out as not a supplement. Only reason it's still a supplement is that it's regulated under supplement laws, not food laws, which means higher risk of contaminants. But as far as protein goes, whey is probably the single best high quality bioavailable protein you can get on a gram for gram basis. And the data has supported that consistently over and over and over. It is probably the best source of protein. So let's just be realistic. Some other protein powders are still good. I think particularly if someone's going to be 100% plant-based and they don't want to do whey, I still think things like soy and pea protein have a place. And they actually do a pretty good job. Okay, so I will admit they do a pretty good job. So if someone's going to be 100% plant-based or vegan, I choose to be 80 to 90% plant-based now. I basically eat some lean animal proteins. That's pretty much it. They can do pretty good on those things. But whey protein, just because of the quality of the protein, plus it might be useful post-workout. We can argue that the anabolic window has been largely overhyped, but it falls into that category of still potentially useful to even get a quick protein shake after you train. Potentially, if you have everything else dialed in. Right? Tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of difference. Okay. All right, creatine. I've been really upset with creatine because newer studies came out showing it did like 20% of what we thought it did. All those other studies were only looking at lean mass gains. Now this has been accounted for water and only looking at tissue hypertrophy and muscle tissue. It is much, much weaker than we thought it was. It's literally like 20% of the strength we thought it was. I threw my hands up like, screw this stuff. But I will still say the cognitive benefits still up in the air. The data hasn't been that promising, but there's still some data showing some promise. Maybe. As far as the muscle gains, I guess the way I would look at it, creatine is cheap, readily available, and it does show some little bit of results. Is it going to be a noticeable difference? No. Anything that's given a noticeable difference is a placebo. Over the course of several years, would continual creatine supplementation possibly give you a few extra ounces of muscle? According to the data, yes. So I'll say, okay, do you want the extra muscle or not? So Greg Nuck will say that, and I'll say, okay, fair point. I'll say fair point, Greg. All right. It's just not as good as we thought it was. Still works, just but gains are gains. I mean, if a supplement that does anything, it's probably the only one that's going to put muscle on you, by the way. That's it. That's the only one. Other than protein, if you need the protein. All right, multivitamins. I've always been kind of hard on multivitamins, but I've seen some really good experts. I've read recently, been digging back into it because I like to revisit these things. I've seen some good experts say, look at some of the meta-analysis. There are some potential benefits. If you buy a quality brand, they're probably not dangerous. And it probably is a decent insurance policy just in case maybe your diet's not 100% perfect. It's not a bad idea. Okay, granted. I did look at some meta-analysis that showed, particularly in populations to where they maybe weren't getting enough vegetables, the multivitamins did not fully fill in the gaps, but they did note they showed lower oxidative stress in the body than people given a placebo. What then do we make of that? Okay, so maybe they're not a bad insurance policy. Just be careful of things like too many heavy metals in them, right? You don't want an excessive amount of zinc, supplementation, things like that. Is it a quality product? Seems to be good. Okay. All right, it may be because they are cheap. I mean, multivitamins are very, very cheap unless you're buying something stupid expensive, then you're still getting ripped off. But if it's costing you $10, $15 for a 3 or 4 month supply, cheap insurance policy, okay, I'll say it's not a terrible idea. Okay, is that fair? Pre-workout, I'm kidding, no pre-workouts. Pre-workouts are garbage, they're trash, the data shows it. They're addictive, they don't help you make gains. That's what the research shows. They don't do crap. Thought I'd throw that one in there. You guys are gonna get an April Fool. April Fool, I might say branched chain amino acids work. Then people will remix it and then call it a flip-flop, right? That's how it'll work. They did it on some of my other April Fools before. All right. Lastly, fish oil. I got upset with some of the data because I promoted fish oil forever. Here is a more nuanced approach. On average, fish oil supplementation appears to do nothing. Unregulated, if you just take a normal amount, you take a pill or two, you buy it at the store, the research shows 0 health benefits, 0 reduction in all-cause mortality, 0 reduction in cardiovascular disease, 0 improvement on your blood work. People say, but at least something's better than nothing. Apparently not. Because you can still get enough conversion on some of these things from your ALA. You really can. The data is for general health, your ALA will convert just fine in the human body. That is what the data is showing. Even eating some walnuts, some flax seeds, some tofu will give you what you need for general health. When you look at what cardiologists have said, because a lot of cardiologists give prescription fish oil, they give the ultra strength stuff. And here's what they're saying. And I've also spoke to someone I know who is a coach and a medical doctor. And he said, look, fish oil is worthless at low doses. It's not worth the money. You're just throwing it away. He's like, you really shoot for it. He goes, I recommend personally that people get 2 grams of combined EPA and DHA. And if they're not hitting that, and I've always seen that number thrown out medically, he's like, if you're not bothering to hit that number, don't bother taking the fish oil. It's just a way. You're probably not going to see any improvement. That's what I've noticed in patients and in clients. All right, what are you seeing the research and the doctors who do prescribe it? They're like, oh, you got to have a ton. So I've seen stuff to where, yeah, if you get 4 grams of EPA and DHA, there's improvements in your blood work. Or a lot of them are saying minimum 2 grams of EPA and DHA is what I prescribe to clients, and it does lower their cholesterol. So they're patients who have bad lipid numbers. It will lower their triglycerides. That's what they're saying. So here's what we're noting. To get any benefit from fish oil, you have to take a lot. You're going to be taking 10 plus caps a day if you're buying the regular strength. Because that is even what the doctors who prescribe it and do see improvements are like, that's what you have to take. This is what I prescribe. That's your minimum, and sometimes we'll go higher. Like anything under, you don't see any of the benefits in the blood work. So we will come back and say, particularly if you need the lipid profile improvement, and maybe it does carrying over to other health benefits, you have to have a lot of fish oil. So if you're going to take it, if you're just taking 1 or 2 of the fish oil caps a day, even 3, you are probably literally throwing your money away. You're not seeing any benefit. If you're not going to commit to do the amount that doctors are prescribing, don't expect anything. And even then, if it's your lipids are not in need of it, you may not be getting anything anyways. The only positive outcomes you are seeing are in that clinical environment where they're giving them prescriptions for the high dose. And you can buy the high dose, it's readily available. Otherwise, you're eating a handful of fish oil pills a day. Just be aware of that. So this is going to fall into the category of 90% of the time, 99% of the time useless. But if enough is taken, appears to be benefits, but those benefits may not apply to 100% of the population. So are we going to say it's useless? In practice, for most people, yes. Applied correctly the way medical doctors and cardiologists are doing it, it does appear to be beneficial. So that's going to fall into that category. You see where we're going, all of it. And then I'm going to say melatonin would be the last one. Melatonin. I like melatonin. I don't want to get into a whole long diatribe. I've always liked melatonin. It's a great sleep aid. That's about it. Unless you're taking salts of different types, magnesium, potassium salts, things like that. Unless you're adding just salts, electrolytes. Those are probably the only supplements you're going to see any benefits from. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.